So about Australians for Better Government, what are we? What do we stand for? Australians for Better Government is a grassroots people's movement dedicated to improving the way we vote, the structure of our government and reforming the Constitution. We believe that members of Parliament often serve their own ambitions or the will of their political party. I think we know that all too well, instead of faithfully representing the interests of all of us, the Australian people. Now, we can no longer rely on politicians to drive change in this country. It needs to be a grassroots people's movement, and that's what we hope to achieve with Australians for Better Government. So Australians for Better Government is determined to begin the discussion on how we can reform the system and make change for the better. So what's our mission? We want to reform the Constitution, and we have proposals for each one of these. You can head to our website and read those proposals. We'll talk about some of them today as well. We want to ensure a true separation of powers, which I'll touch on in a moment. We want to improve the quality of the vote. We want greater participation in a direct democracy, so through plebiscites and citizens-initiated referenda, enshrining our freedoms, and also instilling pride in Australia again. So many of our youth especially told that they should be guilty or ashamed of being Australian. We want to reverse that. We've had tremendous achievements in this country over our history, and we need to start celebrating those. So that's what Australians for Better Government stands for. So the big question is, what is government at the end of the day? What is it? When you dial it down to its core, at the end of the day, laws, legislation, and even our Constitution are just words on a page. Now, yes, they are enforced by law, but when the masses don't agree with those laws, what's written on those pages anymore, you get this. Revolution. Now, I'm not calling for revolution at all. Why not? Because revolution often leads to bloodshed, and we don't want that. But we can still have a peaceful revolution, and we need to understand that we, the people, have the power. And if we can get enough people behind this movement, the greater impact that we will have. So how can we achieve better government? Where do we start? For me, we need to address the separation of powers in this country, because we're told that we have a separation of powers. We're told that there's this big separation between the House of Representatives and the Senate, and that's the separation of powers. No, they're part of the one branch, the legislature. That's the Parliament. It's a bicameral system. They're all in the one branch, those two houses of Parliament. It's meant to be separated with the executive. Now, the executive, well, the legislature has the power to make and change laws. The executive then puts those laws into action. So that's the ministers, and it should be the Governor-General, but currently is run basically by the Prime Minister. And the third branch is the judiciary. So this is the power to make judgments on law. That's the courts. So they make rulings on whether these laws that they pass are constitutional, etc. So right now, the Prime Minister and basically the government of the day selects the Governor-General. We're saying, should the Governor-General be selected or elected? Should the Australian people be electing the Governor-General? Now, what's worse than that is the Attorney-General. We say the Attorney-General should also be elected, because currently the Attorney-General sits in Parliament, so they're part of the legislature, they're part of the executive, and they also run the judiciary. So where's the separation there? They're in all three branches. So we'll talk about that a little bit later as well. Now, our current Governor-General, Her Excellency, the Honourable Sam Mostyn, she was selected by Anthony Albanese, and she's pushing this campaign where she wants to increase the civics understanding amongst our youth. And that sounds fantastic, because that's exactly what Australians for Better Government wants to do as well. Now, it says that Australia's Governor-General is on a mission to reverse declining civic scores among Australian students. That sounds great. She's driven by two factors: young people's poor understanding of how democracy works and their lack of faith in our institutions, both at record lows. Again, we agree with that. But then she says this, I think misinformation and disinformation is the great scourge of our time. Well, who decides what misinformation and disinformation is? Did we ask for this as Australian people? Is there a big movement amongst the Australian people to wipe out misinformation and disinformation? Well, I don't see anyone asking for this, and actually there's great pushback against this. So this is a big reason why we need to elect our Governor-General. Now, people might be sitting there and going, they might be thinking, well, I'm a monarchist and I don't want to see a republic in this country. Well, electing the Governor-General doesn't necessarily mean that we would become a republic. Now, this is Chapter 2 of the Constitution, the executive government. This details the executive and how it's meant to function. The first point, Section 61, the executive power. The executive power of the Commonwealth is vested in the Queen and is exercisable by the Governor-General as the Queen's representative. I'm going to use Crown because they haven't updated the parliamentary website. Surprise, surprise, and we now have a king. But I'm going to use Crown going forward, and extends to the execution and maintenance of the Constitution and of the laws of the Commonwealth. So if we were to elect the Governor-General, the Governor-General would still be the Crown's representative. We don't necessarily have to go to a republic. We can do later if we choose, but this, I think, is the first step to get everyone on side. Now, if we were to elect the Governor-General, then the Governor-General would run the executive. So you'd have the Prime Minister and the government in the legislature passing the laws, and then the Governor-General as the executive would then implement those laws, similar to what happens in America. With Trump as president, he's the head of the executive, and then you have the Congress and the Senate passing the laws. Now, there's another big problem with that, and you'll know that the ministers also implement the laws. Where do the ministers come from? Well, Section 64 says, Ministers of State, the Governor-General may appoint officers to administer such departments of state of the Commonwealth as the Governor-General in Council may establish. Such officers shall hold office during the pleasure of the Governor-General. They shall be members of the Federal Executive Council and shall be the ministers, the Crown's Ministers of State of the Commonwealth. So that means that the Governor-General should select ministers. But there is one line in the Australian Constitution that completely screws up our system of government. And that is this line here, ministers to sit in Parliament. After the first general election, no Minister of State shall hold office for a longer period than 3 months unless he is or becomes a senator or a member of the House of Representatives. So this one line says that if the Governor-General is to select a minister, they have to be part of the Parliament. So now you're selecting from a group of wonderful people, politicians, who may have no experience in the fields that they're going to be heads of the department of now. So let's take an example of this in real life. Let's pick defence. Defence is very important. Now, this is the bio of Richard Marles from his very own Ministry of Defence website. Now, Richard Marles, he's the Deputy Prime Minister of Australia. He's also the Minister of Defence. He was first elected in 2007, and he's also held previous ministries. He's been Minister for Trade, Minister of Employment, Parliamentary Secretary of Foreign Affairs. He's almost selecting these ministries like they're collectible cards or something like that. Now, he was born in 1967, raised in Geelong, and went and studied law and science. But then it says down the bottom, he is a devoted Geelong Cats supporter, a golf fanatic, a keen photographer, a snow dome collector, and a local history enthusiast. Now, nowhere on there does it say anything about defence. Now, this is what his bio doesn't say. He joined the Melbourne University Labor Club in his first week at university. He served as president of the Melbourne University Student Union in 1988. He was the General Secretary of the National Union of Students in 1989. He's picking up on a theme here. He started his career as a solicitor with Melbourne industrial law firm Slater and Gordon. In 1994, he became legal officer for the Transport Workers Union and was elected as the National Assistant Secretary 4 years later. In 2000, he joined Australia's peak national body, the Australian Council of Trade Unions, as Assistant Secretary, remaining in the position until he was elected in 2007. So to me, reading that, he would be better suited as the Minister for Unions than the Minister for Defence. Now, in contrast, if the Governor-General were to select his own Defence Minister from the broad range of people in Australia, maybe this would be the better choice. General Peter Cosgrove, born in Sydney in 1947, son of a soldier, graduated in 1968 from the Royal Military College in Duntroon, fought in Vietnam commanding a rifle platoon, awarded the Military Cross in 1971 for his performance and leadership during an assault on enemy positions. Commander of INAFED in 1999, I'm sure people old enough would remember that. Promoted to Lieutenant General, he was appointed Chief of the Army in 2000. After a further promotion to General, he served as Chief of the Defence Force from 2002 to 2005, and he served as Governor-General. Now, if you were the Governor-General, if you were elected as the Governor-General and you could pick the Minister for Defence, who would you choose out of these two? So this is the main point that we're raising here. Australians for Better Government want to take this line, this members to sit in Parliament line, and put a big red mark through it. We want to delete this, take it to a referendum, let the Australian people decide, but delete this one sentence from the Constitution and allow the Governor-General to select ministers from the broad range of the Australian population. Now, this is the current Albanese cabinet. Now, we're not picking on Labor, but they are currently in government, so that's why we're using them as examples. Now, this is Chris Bowen. He's the current Climate Change and Energy Minister. So what can we say about Chris Bowen? Well, he was born in 1973. He was elected to Fairfield City Council in 1995 and left in 2004. He was elected to Parliament in 2007. Where's his experience in the energy sector or in climate change? This is Katie Gallagher, Minister for Finance, studied political science and sociology, worked as a social worker. And later she was held an administrative job at the Community and Public Sector Union. Here we go again, more unions. And then she was elected to the ACT Parliament in 2001 before entering federal politics. And this is Michelle Rowland, the current Attorney General. Practiced as a lawyer in the communications industry, specialising in telecommunications and media law. As Communications Minister, she introduced the legislation to ban under-16s from social media. She was also Minister when the misinformation and disinformation legislation was attempted. Now she is the first law officer of the land and Attorney General. So what might better options be? So let's think about health. Maybe we'll have Dr. Melissa McCann as Minister for Health, or maybe Dr. Miley Trin, or Dr. William Bay, or Dr. Philip Altman. If the Governor-General could pick their own ministers from the broader Australian public, this is the options that we could have. Minister for Finance, maybe Mark Burris, maybe Peter Switzer, someone like that, someone with some experience in the financial industry. And Attorney General is very important. And we believe that it shouldn't come from the law profession. It should be someone outside the law profession to watch over the current courts. And if you've seen this man in Senate estimates, he would be my pick for Attorney General, Malcolm Roberts. So these are options that we could have. You might not agree with them, you might have your own, but that's the power that would be provided to the Governor-General if we were to make these steps. So let's recap. What does Australians for Better Government, what are we proposing? We want to elect the Governor-General. We want to elect the Attorney-General, and we want to ensure there's a true separation of powers between each branch of government, the three branches. We want to delete the minister sit in Parliament line in section 64 of the Constitution. And we want to allow the Governor-General to run the executive branch and nominate ministers to be approved by the Senate. So he would nominate them, it will go to the Senate for approval, just like it happens in the United States of America. So the next step, what can we do to get this going, right? First thing is to join us, be a member. If you can join us, it really gets some oomph behind what we're trying to achieve. And when we go and lobby parliamentarians in Parliament, they're going to ask us, well, how many members do you have? If we can say that we have a great number of members, they're going to start to listen more than. So the more that we have, the more they'll listen. We want to hold events and forums and also move to having a People's Constitution Convention. We have these discussions with the broader Australian community. We want to hold rallies. We want to, and we need you really, we're going to try and spread the word as much as we can, but we need all of you to also help spread the word and start to have conversations about these proposals with the Australian people. And lastly, we need you to get active. If we hold an event or a rally or something like that, we please ask you to attend. The bigger numbers that we have, again, the more impact that we can have. So please head to our website, australiansforbetter.com. You can sign up to be a member. And you can also read our proposals as well. And you can also join our mailing list, and you'll get regular emails from us. So let's start this journey together. We want to do it as a collective. We want everyday Australians to be involved as much as they can. And together, we can bring better government for Australia.